of the world as we know it, I feel fine. I feel fine. It's the end of the world. I know it. But I'm okay. You're okay. We're also okay. Are you okay? This is conspiracy comedy news. And there is so much going on. On Tuesday, this British newspaper editor, Francis Matthew, he was in Dubai, in the United Arab Emirates, and he killed his wife. I shouldn't laugh at that, but what cracks me up about it is, like, he's charged with murdering his wife with a hammer. With a hammer. He says it was an accident. He said, well, I threw it at her, but I didn't mean to kill her. What if he was planning this whole thing? What if he was, what if this was premeditated? You know, Islamic laws are pretty slippery when it comes to spousal abuse. I mean, they kill their children. You know, they have, what do they call, not mercy killings. No, it's like honor killings. And they've even done it here in America. So, you know, if you're going to kill your wife with a hammer, what have you, you might as well do it in the United Arab Emirates. You know, they got that Sharia law over there. You know, he was probably thinking, you know, I could kill my wife under Sharia law. Well, when in Rome. Well, I don't know if it's true or not, but if so, it'd be the perfect crime. Okay, what's going on in the House of Representatives? The Democrats in the House of Representatives have presented a new version of a Russia-Iran sanctions bill. Like last month, they threw this bill. The Senate did it, and I guess this is a message to Trump. You know, he wants to improve ties with Moscow, and they don't want him to. They prefer the status quo of enemies everywhere, and spend a lot on the military, right? So anyway, it passed 98-2 like last month in the Senate, but it was stalled because the sanctions can be profitable, apparently. Maybe that's why they do so many of them on North Korea and Iran and anybody that the victim du jour, right? So anything that can hypothetically generate money has to originate in the House, right? So Senator Bob Corker, the Republican chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, said, dilly-dallying around about this blue slip issue, that's what they call the blue slip issue, it was just a ridiculous waste of time. We could have fixed it in 5 minutes. Oh, really, Bobby? Really? You think anyone wants to give up a kickback in this government? You think your fellow Congress critters are going to go along with you just taking 5 minutes and fixing that bill? Is this like your first day in office? Huh? Well, speaking of money for our government, the White House has predicted that the American budget deficit is going to hit the staggering figure of $702 billion this year. What? That's $99 billion higher than was predicted in late May. You know, Trump is already promising to give to double the military-industrial complex's income, if you will, by doubling our military spending. But this bill will give him even more payola to them guys, them military-industrial Congress critters. So yeah, this is crazy. The U.S. House passes a sweeping $696 billion military bill for 2018. And it's like, they're not even waiting. They're going to start dispensing the money. Oh, let me ask you something, dear listener. Would you give up drinking to impeach Trump? Would you? Those of you who are Trump haters? Well, they did a survey. I guess Alcoholics People's, some kind of, I don't know what the group is called. But anyway, it's like they did a survey and they found out that more than 73% of American Democrats, they would give up drinking alcohol for the rest of their life if President Donald Trump would be impeached. 73% of them. Excuse me? Booze? Now I can understand if you were going to give up something like, oh, I don't know, hit yourself in the head with a hammer, or, you know, something like reading books. I don't know, giving up ice cream or something, I don't know. Sugar. I don't know. But there's some things. But come on, giving up the booze? I don't know. I don't know. I don't buy it. But that's what their survey found out. And the Republicans, nearly 31% of Republicans, they said that they would give up drinking if it meant the media would stop writing negative articles about their president. So why do they have to go after booze? Oh, it makes me hurt. Other incentives that might accept to stop drinking, what would they be, huh? How about money? Would you take money to stop drinking? Is the big question on everyone's lips. Huh? Okay, yeah. The minimum amount of money that a person would accept, according to this survey they did, to stop drinking for 1 year is at least $4,700. $4,700 to give up drinking for a year. Well, how about this? How about to give up alcohol for life? Well, the average amount that they would expect to give up alcohol for life would be at least $365,458. Well, excuse me? Can I have that all at once? Can I, huh? Where do I sign? All of a sudden, they piqued my interest. How about you, kids? Can I start tomorrow? I still have booze. I got beer in the refrigerator, and I'm not pouring it out. No. I've done that before, and it didn't end well. Is what I'm saying. I need my booze. But for $365,458, maybe, just maybe, we can talk. So, okay, what else is going on? Well, we all know, especially if you've been watching my show or listening to my show, that Israel, the U.S., Turkey, all of NATO really are aiding and abetting these terrorists, these mercenary groups that were created by them in the first place in Syria. Well, of course, it shouldn't surprise you that Saudi Arabia helps terrorists in Iraq. And more than likely most of the rest of the gang I just mentioned as well. And this came out in a quick study that was discovered after Mosul. Was it Mosul? Yeah, Mosul was cleared. The old city of Mosul. They went through there and they looked at the paperwork of these Daesh militants that they had captured and had dispatched, and they discovered that 150 intelligence officers were sent to Mosul by Saudi Arabia to join the Takfiri Daesh militants and direct them in battles against the Iraqi government forces and the allied fighters from popular mobilization units. So, Iraqi government forces confiscated important documents certifying Saudi intelligence officers' assistance to Daesh terrorists once they liberated Mosul from the clutches of the Takfiris. Iraqi security forces found a large number of Daesh militants, by the way, who were hiding in tunnels that they dug beneath the old city. They were hiding down there. I mean, I guess it'd be a good idea. They've been in there long enough to dig some tunnels. Be good for them air raids, that's for dang sure. So, enough of that. Let's talk about Donnie Trump. You know you wanted to hear things about him, but I'm not going to disappoint you. Donnie McTrumpstein, he claimed success with his Putin talk. I was talking about it last week that he was going to have a talk with Putin. Well, he did. He had a sit down, a get together, a face to face. And what came of it? A truce in Syria. By having dialogue, we were able to have a ceasefire. It's going to go on for a while, and frankly, we're working on a second ceasefire in a very rough part of Syria. It's going to be huge. And if we get that, and a few more, all of a sudden you're going to have no bullets being fired in Syria, and that would be a wonderful thing. That's what he said. That is what he said. And then, of course, right after that, the U.S. does another bombing run and kills more civilians. What? I thought they were going to have a ceasefire, a truce. Oh, just over there. Yeah, okay. Because in this particular one, a couple of days ago, nearly a dozen civilians were killed. And it was the U.S.-led coalition purportedly fighting the Takfiri Daesh terrorist group. And aerial attacks in Syria's militant-held northern city of Raqqa. But apparently, they weren't shooting it, and they never do. They always shoot at neighborhoods, the Al-Diriyah neighborhood of the city. This was early on Thursday. 7 of the victims were members of one family. So yeah, our ceasefires are practically non-existent. If you ask me, I know you're not going to ask me. Yes, but we were successful in southern Syria. You see, over there in that area, that little patch over there, it's very calm and peaceful over there. There was music and everything. It was a wonderful party going on. Yeah, you can't blame me for those other things. You know, I'm kind of reminded of when W declared mission accomplished in Iraq. He was up there. He I don't know if he was actually flying that plane. He came in. He was in a flight suit, and with a big banner behind him on some battleship that said "Mission accomplished in Iraq." Must have been an aircraft carrier, of course. You know, I was in a meeting years ago at about that same time, and there was these journalists, and it's kind of like about journalism and what have you, and these fools were talking about the end of the war. They were all so proud about the end of the war, and I'm like, excuse me? You know, I was pointing out to them, it's like journalists and soldiers and civilians are still being killed over there. That war isn't over. It wasn't over then, and it's still not over right now, ladies and germs. Sheesh. These people, they talk a good game, but it's like, no, you can't just make a statement and change reality. Maybe they can. That's right, they're magicians. That's why we put them in office, because they're magicians. They're our heroes. They can do anything they want. All they have to do is have a good attitude, and it makes everything okay. What else? Let's see. The Donald Trump administration has asked the Supreme Court to block a federal judge's ruling that grandparents of American citizens already being processed by resettlement agencies are exempt from the U.S. president's controversial travel ban. Now, what I just said was Donald Trump, they want the Supreme Court to block this judge's ruling that grandparents can come in. Grandparents. He wants to ban grandparents. He won't even give them a break. Seriously, how many terrorists are grandparents? I mean, I guess you could be a terrorist at any age, you know, but it's like these are grandparents. I'm not saying that, you know, I'm also not trying to act like I'm an age discriminate kind of a person and say one people should be, you know, given special treatment. I'm not saying that. Look, if you want to join Al-Nusra or ISIS or Al-Qaeda or whatever, I don't want to say that you can't get the job if one of your children has a baby. You know, that would be unfair hiring practice. I mean, God forbid you have a grandchild and they lay you off. Sorry, Ahmed, we're going to have to let you go. Rules are rules. Now, take off the suicide vest. There's a good lad. It just doesn't make sense to me. It's like they're just trying to be rude now at this point in time. You got grandchildren in the country and you're a grandparent. Oh, dagnabbit. There's a lot of things to stand up for in this country, and I think that's a good one. I think that deserves some attention. But anyway, speaking of Russia, was I speaking of Russia? I can't remember. Oh yeah, a while ago, Putin. Russia's foreign ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova said yesterday that there were too many CIA and Pentagon intelligence employees under the roof of American diplomatic mission there in Russia. She's saying we got too many spies over there. They're ridiculous spies too. They're crazy. They're wacky. Their activities do not correspond to their status. And that's just the beginning. She said that the public must have heard about the adventures of some of the U.S. spies, adding that everything was available to the public: wigs, disguises, and installations with performances. That's obviously translated from the Russian. I wonder what the Russian word for installations with performances. I wonder what it would what it would translate to in street speak. I don't know. Lap dance establishments? I don't know. There's installations with performances. Yeah, would that be a titty bar, perhaps? They have boobs in Russia. Anyway, Sakharova was apparently referring to the January remarks of Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, who said Moscow had foiled several intelligence activities involving U.S. nationals working under diplomatic cover while wearing disguises. Among them, men dressing as women. That's right. Our drag queens are bad. That's right. Our spies aren't afraid to dress as a woman. They'll get the job done. Ain't that right? Huh? Who's with me, spies? In one of the incidents, a disguised diplomat wearing a wig and false eyebrows penetrated into the U.S. Embassy after hitting the security officer and refusing to show his ID card. What else did she say? She said Russia's preparing to expel U.S. diplomats and shut down some American compounds if Washington fails to reopen 2 Russian recreational estates that were closed in the U.S. That's right, folks. We ain't playing fair with the Russians or with anyone else. Okay, fine. So now it's time for the protest report. The protesters, they're out there protesting. You can see them. They're out there. They have banners. They're all over the world, and they're angry. The Women's March organizers, that's what they call themselves, the Women's March. They led a protest in front of the NRA headquarters in Fairfax, Virginia yesterday. They were angry at the NRA. Angry! Because of an NRA video ad with this rather attractive woman. I saw the ad. And she was claiming that the left uses the media and Obama to encourage protests by left-leaning groups. Them left-leaning groups, them leftist groups out there, Antifa and all that, oh, they're out there because of the media. Yeah, because of the left wing. Let's see, she says, all to make them march, make them protest, make them scream racism and sexism, xenophobia and homophobia, smash windows and burn cars, shut down interstates and airports, bully and terrorize the law-abiding until the only option left is for the police to do their jobs and stop the madness. And when that happens, they'll use it as an excuse for their outrage. The only way we can stop this, the only way we save our country and our freedom is to fight this violence of lies with a clenched fist of truth. I'm the National Rifle Association of America, and I'm freedom's safest place. She actually said that she is the National Rifle Association. And she, personally her, is freedom's safest place. Well, you know, when a pretty woman says something to me, I sit up and take notice. The lady's pretty. She's very pretty. I'd like to take shelter in her place. Yes, please. May I take shelter in your place? I'd like to shelter in your place. Is that what the kids are calling it nowadays? Is that like code for sex? Yeah, come on over and shelter my place, baby. I'm gonna give you shelter. It's the Rolling Stones things. Give some shelter. I'm gonna fade away. Okay, so they're out there. They were out there. When was that? Thursday? Yesterday? Whatever. Yeah. And then these women's, they started marching towards the Justice Department in D.C., and that's like 18 miles away from where they were over there at the NRA headquarters. But it didn't take long for them to stop, because it was like 100 degrees out there, and they were like, the women's, and they were like, whew, they weren't dressed for a hike, is all I'm trying to say. So they stopped, and then like spent nights in hotels, I'm assuming. They just motels or something. They got the hell off the streets. So this morning, they reappeared in front of the Justice Department. So they're still protesting. They got their signs and all that kind of. Basically, what they want is they want the NRA to take down that ad, that video, and apologize. Oh no! Don't just take it down. We want you to apologize too. I don't care how pretty she is. We ain't a bunch of lesbians. We want you to take the thing down. And they want the NRA to make a statement to defend Philando Castile's Second Amendment right to own a firearm, and press the Department of Justice to indict the officer who killed him for exercising his right as a licensed and concealed carry permit holder. This, I don't know if y'all remember that case. This is a guy, Philando Castile. He was pulled over and he told the officer that he has a gun on him, that he has a concealed carry permit, and it's a legal gun, so the officer shot him and killed him. As they do. As they are wont to do. Like as that woman in the video thinks that they should do, right? So anyway, these protesters are saying that it's the NRA's job, is their very job, to protect concealed carry permit holders. I mean, they're the NRA, right? They're supposed to protect it. I mean, other people say, anyway, it's not their job. Yeah, well, it is their job. It is. They're supposed to. Anyway, I'm not going to argue with myself in front of you, dear listener, because I learned a long time ago that the NRA is basically a limited hangout. They're like controlled opposition. You know, they basically, they kind of like act like they put on the show that they're trying to defend our Second Amendment. But this video is further proof of that crap. It's like that woman saying, "Hey, we're here to protect the Second Amendment, but we also support the very people that will take our guns away and kill us if we have one." Yeah, speaking out of both sides of your mouth. It's controlled opposition. They have a nice big organization called the NRA, and they can point to that, and they control that, like so many others. So anyway, these women, they gave up their march in just a few hours, like I said, because they couldn't take it. Well, I know some people who can take it, and these people are called Quakers. Oh yeah, the Quakers. They may be crazy, but they're Quaker, and they can march. In New Hampshire, a group of mostly Quakers, they walked for 7 days. 7 days this week, from Portsmouth's Schiller Power Station to Merrimack Station in Bow, New Hampshire, to demonstrate against burning coal for energy. They don't like to burn coal? I mean, it's like, you think Quakers would have a stove with wood in it and coal? Anyway. The spokesperson, Catherine Fisher, said, "If the truth about climate change is really true, and if the truth about the power of God to heal the world is really true, then this is the action that we're led to." Well, you're a religious person, I get it. I feel rude, really rude, but I gotta say it. I mean, it's like that's what I've been saying all along for a decade now. That global warming, the whole anthropogenic global warming scare, the whole thing is basically a religion. You have to drop all logic, you have to ignore science, and fall for it. It's Al Gore is like the self-appointed pope of the global warming religion. It's fraud, and it's a religion because you have to believe. Once you start studying into it, you'll find out right away that it's fraud, and they know that most people won't even bother, and that's how they're winning with this. That's how they're getting so many people involved, but not necessarily. I mean, if you have your central banks spread all over the planet, right, Rothschilds, you're listening. They're fans of the show, the Rothschilds. You know that as long as you've got your central banks all around all over the place and you control the government that allowed you to put the central bank in there, then you're going to control the discourse and all that. And you're going to have your wonderful mechanism called carbon taxes, and you can siphon the wealth out of every country on the planet and take them all down to their knees, which is where you want them. Don't you there, Rothy McRothstein, Rothy Shildo. And in other global warming fraud news, a study recently released by the Union of Concerned Scientists, they say that 90 communities, I'm laughing because this is so stupid. It's such a ridiculous lie. A study recently released by the Union of Concerned Scientists says 90 communities are considered inundated today. Inundated. I think by inundated they mean with water, because they believe that the sea levels are rising. It's like mostly in Louisiana and Maryland, where seas are rising and the land is sinking. Those are two different things. The seas can rise and sink, and the land can rise and sink, but that's not the same. Anyway, who cares? The co-author and senior climate analyst, Erika Spanger-Siegfried, of Siegfried and Roy fame, she said, in hundreds of coastal American cities and towns, decades before sea level rise permanently puts land underwater, chronic, disruptive, high tide flooding arrives and makes it impossible to carry on business as usual in impacted areas. She sounds like a nut. And not just because I'm doing her voice as a nut. Anyway, this is a quotation to continue what she said. Between 165 and 180 chronically inundated communities in just the next 15 to 20 years. Between 270 and 360 in roughly 40 years. Oh! Depending on the pace of sea level rise. And 490 by the end of the century, with a moderate sea level rise scenario. Let us pray. Oh, dear Gore, who liveth on high, protect us from the waters. What an idiot. Anyway, I covered this ad nauseum in my last show. I've been putting out videos of my shows. If there's anybody listening to it at all, you can actually see. I got a camera pointed at me, and I'm going to put this thing on video. And you could watch a pretty good video, if I do say so myself. It's about 22 minutes long, where I exposed global warming fraud. I went to the science of it, who the players are, who set the whole thing up. And it's very informative and kind of cute, because I put a lot of illustrations in it, see, because I got the tools and I got the talent, and I'm making them videos. And all you have to do, if you want to watch this thing, is go to YouTube and type in Conspiracy Comedy News Global. The title of the video I call Global Warming Fraud, but you don't have to write the whole thing. Just write Conspiracy Comedy News and the word global, and it'll be the first thing that comes up in your feed. So yeah, and you can find all the rest of my videos. I've done the last 3 or 4 shows, putting out little PowerPoint demonstrations, and I'd be proud if you were to do that. You could find me on Facebook, Marz Theron, MarzTheron, and Twitter, the same name. So come on, don't be a stranger. Let's get this going. We're in this together, folks. So what else is going on? Okay, I was talking about protests. Okay, in Warsaw, several hundred people protested in Warsaw today after Poland's Senate adopted 2 judicial bills that the opposition says are an attempt by the ruling Conservative Party to undermine the separation of powers. Is every country left versus right? Conservative versus Democratic? They have a Democratic Party too? It's nutty. It's nutty, I tell you. The demonstration was organized by left-wing opposition parties and citizen committees. Chanting freedom, equality, fraternity, the protesters rallied outside the presidential palace and called on President Andrzej Duda. Count down, ladies, sing this song. Andrzej Duda, Andrzej Duda. Try saying that 10 times and not get a tongue twist. Okay, what I got there? And they want to veto this legislation. The opposition claims that the bills will wipe out judicial independence and violate democracy and the rule of law in Poland. It will, I tell you. The bills will give power to the parliament to choose members of the National Council of the Judiciary. That's people that protect the court independence, is who those guys are. And they also state that the current Supreme Court judges will be forced to retire unless, of course, the Minister of Justice likes them and allows them to stay, and he can also name their replacements. It's like they're putting too much power into too few people. They're giving the Minister of Justice total power over the entire Supreme Court, and the people say no, 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 no. That's a coup. It's an attempted coup, and so yeah. So they don't like it, and they protest, and I approve. I come from a long line of protesters. I've been carrying signs and singing songs for many years. That's me. I'm a comedian and a protester and an activist. Okay, what else we got going on? Japanese people are protesting. Oh yeah, they've held a rally in front of the American Marine Corps Camp Schwab on the island of Okinawa. So yeah, the Japanese people out there are they're lining the road. I'm telling you, and they're angry because the Americans want to put another military base in Okinawa. There they go. I'm telling you, so they're angry. So they line the road leading to the Marine base in Henokos area near Nago City on Thursday, chanting slogans against the plans and holding placards decrying the U.S. military presence. Marines out and stop illegal work. That's what the placards say if you read Japanese. Although they might have done it in English. I don't know. I didn't see the pictures. Nearly half of 100,000 U.S. troops in Japan are in Okinawa. So that's 50,000 troops are already there. And Okinawa's not that big a place. They don't like it. They're very angry because there's a lot of horrible things have been done by our troops over there. Several different occasions. They like rape. They raped this young girl. I think a couple of different. Anyway, they don't need to be there. We go our country goaded them into attacking us. Sure, they were bad people at the time, but come on. That was in the 1940s. Those people are either dead or retired, or like in an old folks' home. For us to have troops there, still to this day, is an insult. But of course, they've got deals going on with the government. So let's see, what's the history on this? After the Second World War, Japan remains an occupied country as the U.S. maintains its heavy military presence on the island. The people of Okinawa have been devastated by the U.S. military base, the pollution, the noise, raping of women committed by U.S. servicemen, and none of these have been resolved. It's been going on like this since 1945. They should call for a total elimination of America's occupation, and all U.S. military bases should close down. That's what they say. That's what they're saying in their literature on the subject. Look, we got 900 military bases around the world in 130 different countries. That's us. 900 military bases, the United States, around the world in 130 countries. It's inappropriate. It's inappropriate. Did I mention that? I disapprove. If we ever try to get our country back from these bastards, we got a lot of work to do. And a huge amount of it would be bringing them home. But what have we got now as the president? Huh? Anybody paying any attention? I just told you guys that his goal, stated goal, was to double military spending. So, no. This guy ain't going to bring our troops home. And that was when I used to be a protester. I mean, it's like it was always anti-war. It was always against war. There was always a war going on, a protest, boys and girls. And now there's so many. It's almost like the anti-war group just kind of like shriveled up. A lot of them were Vietnam vets, and I think they're just getting too old for it. And the new kids, they don't give a damn. They bring these Antifas in, and they come in with their balaclavas covering their face, and they set fires and knock over trash cans. And they're not protesting anti-war. They're protesting whatever George Soros wants them to protest. While we're on the subject, in France, today, the French activists launched a protest rally earlier today against the planned visit by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to Paris, slamming Bibi's human rights violations across the occupied Palestinian territories, as well they should. Netanyahu ain't right. The whole concept ain't right. So yeah, these protesters are very well aware of that. These are pro-Palestinian protesters. They gathered in Place de la République Square in Paris, wearing green t-shirts that say Free Palestine and holding portraits of Netanyahu with words over his face. They read, Fasciste, Assassin, Criminel, Tortionnaire, which means torturer, of course. Bourdieu, quick, call it out if you know what it means. It means thief. Okay, Bourdieu. And Gardien de Camp, which it basically means a camp guard. I guess he's referring to Palestine turning into one of the biggest prison camps in the world. You've got the West Bank and the and all the Gaza Strip, basically all walled in. So yeah, they don't like him. They disapprove of him. You know, because the Israelis have heard of the Palestinians, the largest prison camps in the world, Gaza, West Bank, and built hundreds of miles of walls around them to starve them out. You know, that's when they are bulldozing their homes and building settlements on top of their blood and bones and removing any signs that they were ever there, erasing the very existence of what was once the Holy Land, where people once came to visit the birthplace of Christianity. So yeah, I mean, the whole thing is like, that's kind of at the root of the problem, is that Zionist movement that has not just invaded Palestine and taken it over and changed the name, but it also owns us, our government. For those of you who don't know, that Cynthia McKinney talked about it. It's like, in order to make it in politics, in order to make it in our government, in order to get funding for your campaign to be elected and re-elected, you are required as a senator, congressman, doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on, you're required to handwrite, to write your own letter in your own words professing fealty to Israel. That, they want it. They want something that each and every one of our Congress critics, each and every one of the members of our government has done this, except for Cynthia McKinney, and I don't know if there's any others, hopefully there are, but they have to swear allegiance to the Israelis. Let that sink in. If you don't already know that, you can look it up. I didn't make this up. I ain't making none of this up. I may be mistaken about a thing or two, but that ain't one of them. So that's what sits up there in Washington D.C., hovering over us like a cluster of 500 and some odd or 600 different people over there, hovering over us like the vultures they are, circling, and each of one of them somewhere on file, probably at the the ADL or APAC or something. They got a vault with all these written letters composed in their own words by everybody in our government. So with that in mind, let's move along here to see what else is going on in the world. Oh yeah, I was talking about the Paris, and they're holding up pictures of Macron as well. You know, the new guy that's the boss of Paris. He's a Rothschild agent, by the way, and the word complice across his face, as in accomplice. He's an accomplice to the other. You see like this sea of people with green T-shirts on that say "Free Palestine." Most of them, and a bunch of them holding up nice glossy photographs of Netanyahu, his ugly face, with the word fasciste, assassin, criminel, tortionnaire, voleur, gardien de camp on these photographs, and then you have other people holding up photographs of Macron and the word complice across his face. It's a sight to be seen. Look it up. It's happening. It's probably over now. I think it's late. I think it's early morning over there now. They're what, about 4 or 5 hours ahead of us, 6 or 7 hours, 8 hours, something like that. Not that much, but something like that. So let's see. Yeah, because they don't like him because he invited Netanyahu to visit France. Like, come on over. Yeah, Manuel is very much a complice, having been a complicit associate of the Rothschilds that created the Zionist movement that has invaded Palestine, claiming the country as the new headquarters for the Rothschilds to use as a base camp in their takeover of the planet. This was all planned. What was it, 1897? Yeah, they said, hey, let's do this. Where do you want to go? Okay, we should be able to take over something. Come on. We're the Rothschilds. We rule. Come on now. We should have our own country. Where do you want? Well, okay. How about Madagascar? No, not Madagascar. How about Palestine? Wouldn't that be something? We could take over the Holy Land, and we could convince everybody that was supposed to happen, because our history is from there. You know, the hell with the Christians and the Muslims who also think that's their Holy Land. Oh, no. They're pacifists. We'll be a cakewalk. So what else? Oh, the activists were also chanting slogans against Israel's continued settlement construction in the Palestinian-occupied territories and the blockade of Gaza. And by the way, they shut down the Al-Aqsa Mosque, but apparently they're going to open it again tomorrow. And it's early morning tomorrow over there, so hopefully they've went ahead and opened it again. But read about that, the Al-Aqsa Mosque. There was a shootout a day or two ago, and it's a pretty important structure for the Muslims and the Jews. I guess they think it's also theirs, that the Holy Mount was there. I don't know. It's a building, and it means something. It means a lot to a lot of people. So okay, they're chanted slogans. They're angry about the settlement construction and the blockade of Gaza. Addressing the gathering, the president of Euro-Palestine, Olivia Zimmer, lashed out at Macron for rolling out the red carpet for a criminal, a torturer of men and children. She doesn't like Netanyahu, is I think what the gist is here. Rolling out the red carpet for a criminal, torture of men and children, a land thief, to someone who does not respect international law and human rights. She asked, how can Macron invite such a person? Netanyahu is someone who, if you take into consideration the International Convention on Torture, should be brought to justice the moment he sets foot in France, because France has signed this convention, which states that anyone who is suspected of committing acts of torture or turns a blind eye to these acts or orders them must be brought to justice. So what is he doing here? He is not being brought to justice. We're rolling out the red carpet for him. What kind of image of France do we want to give? What kind of image of Israel do these people want to give? Speaking of Israel, they have, you know what they have over there, for those of you who are planning to go there? It's a good tourist destination, I understand, if you're Jewish. They have these fantasy terror camps in Israel. Oh, yeah. I don't know if they're using paint guns or what, but it's like they go around and you get to... There's a growing number of Israeli firms. They promote the regime's military tourism in the occupied territories by offering tourists from across the world courses that include simulated situations of killing assailants who suspiciously look like Palestinian Arabs. You know, they put them up on a screen and say, okay, shoot this guy. yeah, he lives down the street. Shoot him. Come on, get your gun. They have actually live guns. They actually fire off. I guess hopefully there's a rock wall behind it, or I don't know, maybe a Palestinian neighborhood. So let's see, half a dozen Israeli firms run the several fantasy terror crafts across the occupied territories and allow foreign tourists to receive training like the Israeli forces for $115 per person in a variety of situations such as explosions, stabbing attacks, sniper tournaments, and live demonstrations with attack dogs. Ooh, you get to play with the attack dogs. Now that's worth $115 out there. The 2-hour camps also allow the tourists to use actual guns and have former soldiers and retired officials guide them as to how to shoot the targets. Look, shoot him in the head. Come on, get him. Which are usually photos of Palestinian Arabs. Well, and apart from the training programs, the Israeli companies are also earning revenues from merchandise they sell. Oh yeah, they have t-shirts and hardcore military equipment. I'm not sure what hardcore military equipment they're allowed to sell to tourists, but maybe they're just referring to, that's another way they make their money, selling military gear, you know, to the mercenaries that they have over there in, to the CIA, who then give it to the mercenaries in Syria. Moving right along, Caliber 3 in the West Bank settlement of Gush Etzion, the first and reportedly the most popular facility of its kind in Israel, attracts approximately 15,000 to 25,000 tourists each year. That's the name of this little playground. The facility also runs a 3-month summer camp for teenage boys, which includes training and lessons on Zionism. Oh, yeah, you can't just be a Zionist without taking classes. Oh, no. You thought all you had to do was get circumcised? No, you have to take classes. So, in a Tuesday report, Israeli daily Haaretz described the camps as part propaganda and part morbid amusement. You know, Haaretz doesn't pull any punches. I don't read it that often, but they're more open about how bad they are in Israel than our media tells us. You know, they know they're not fooling themselves. They know they suck, and that they're occupiers and they're rude, and that their news tells it like it is. It's the strangest damn thing. It's kind of like they glorifying it. I don't know. You tell me. Is that a Luciferian? I'm just guessing here. It seems like you're supposed to let your victim know, otherwise you get no power from the torture. Isn't that part of it? I don't know. I'm going to get my my manual out on black magic and get back to you next show. I'm sorry, I was drinking some tea. Observers warn that the facilities, which are constantly profiting from the idea of threat of war in Israel, are mainly aimed at promoting anti-Palestinian sentiments and forging a moral image for the Israeli army. We're the most moral army in the world. I swear, even when we murdered Palestinians and steal their land. So anyway, we have our new sheriff in the United Nations. You know, what's her name? Nikki Haley. Crazy Nikki Haley. She said in a speech to 18,000 people at AIPAC's annual policy conference. This is the way she talks. I wear heels. It's not for a fashion statement. It's because if I see something wrong, we're going to kick him every single time. Now, this is a woman saying that she wears heels, and it's not for a fashion statement. We're talking heels, not a woman. We're talking high heels, right? You know, pumps. What? Huh? And you're going to kick him every single time? Excuse me, never mind that high heels are terrible for kicking someone in, because your support leg would be dependent on a spiked heel, which is probably going to break off. Aren't those heels like kind of delicate? You can't just be doing roundhouse kicks with a high heels on. Maybe she's talking about stabbing somebody already on the ground with her high heels. Stabby. You know, it sounds like a Krav Maga technique, all right. Moving right along, she was referring to the UN. It would appear that she and her Zionist cohorts are perfectly happy pulling out of the UN and casting it aside like an old shoe with a broken heel. She doesn't appear to be representing the United States at all. She obviously represents Israel and everything she says and everything she does. During Obama's last days in office, he abstained from voting on the UN Security Council Resolution 2334, which strongly criticized Israel's illegal settlements. And Nikki Haley said it was as if the entire country felt a kick in the gut. That's what she said when Obama abstained from voting on that. Which country, Nikki? It sure as hell wasn't our country, you know, the one you're supposed to be representing. Huh? Kind of reminds me of Sarah Palin. Anyway, in case you don't get what I'm saying there, for decades, our country has always voted against any Security Council resolution against Israel. We voted against them. And for us to abstain is almost like the thing passed. I mean, it passed almost unanimously. I think only one other country voted against it, and it was Sweden, I think, or the Netherlands. I believe I talked about this last show. But moving right along, I was talking about Sarah Palin. You know, she wasn't all that. She wasn't all there. She isn't all she says to be. She ain't an American either. She was bragged that she has one flag in her office, and one flag only, the flag of Israel. And she was talking about her office in Alaska, in the governor's office. She was the governor's office. She had the flag of Israel on the wall. I guess nobody cares about what's in the governor's office in Alaska. Maybe we should start caring. But anyway, the U.S. has voted against some 75 of these resolutions in the UN against the crimes of Israel, making them all, in effect, the United Nations and the United Nations itself irrelevant. I don't know how we got the power to just neutralize everything the UN tries to do, but it's apparent that we have it. So, but that for Obama to abstain from voting on it, that was like a beacon of hope suddenly turned on, a bright beacon to the Palestinians and to oppress people all over the world. And but Tricky Nikki, oh no. She's speaking at the 35th session of the UN's Human Rights Council in Geneva. She was there spouting off about how Israel was the only country permanently on the body's calendar, on the human rights calendar. Well, it's a lie, and the Israelis like to tell that lie. But if Haley had actually read this report of the 35th session of the Human Rights Council, she would have realized that the rights body discussed many issues pertaining to women's rights, empowerment, forced marriages, human rights violations in many countries. But no, she always has to make it about Israel. Once again, I say that why is she their spokesperson? She's supposed to be our spokesperson. But she lies for them. She lies for our warmongers and our government. She lies about Syria because, well, Syria is one of Israel's victims. It's all starting to make sense, doesn't it? But Israel don't come up a lot in their discussions, I'll concede, especially that Israel recently celebrated the Six-Day War, 50 years of bloody expansion, grabbing more land, bulldozing more Palestinian homes, putting up more walls, and occupying more Palestinians, and part of Syria as well, by the way. So basically they're slowly erasing the existence and evidence of all that came before with their invasion. And I wasn't intending to go on this rant. I had a bunch of other stuff to talk about, but as we get close to the end of the show, that's what's here on my screen. So yeah. Something interesting about this is that I kind of looked up just before we went to air, is that the UN was created right after World War II. And this is like one of the first actions they came up with this partition plan for Palestine. And it was a sordid piece of history. I can tell by the music that I don't have time to get into this.
Go ahead, wrap up if you can.
I am going to wrap up, and I can. I would like to say thank you for listening to me. This is American Freedom Radio, and this is Conspiracy Comedy News, and I'm Marz Theron, and I will see you next week. Have a good week.